Come on. You are live. I didn't run the thing. I pressed the wrong button.
You didn't run the thing.
I'm out of touch. Shall I run the thing anyway? Hello, guys. Let's run the thing. Hello and welcome. I'm the Restless Kaiser and I'm an idiot.
I'm Bully Mike.
I'm Johnny B. Oh, fair enough. I'm Johnny B. And above me is
Luke Payne.
Luke Payne.
Put together
we are
Modelling for
Magic. Oh, that was just a murdered opening to
that was a rookie opening, mate. You've done like 80 of these shows now, I think. And
I think you've got post-salute stress syndrome. That's what it is.
That's what it is.
Just general fatigue. There we go.
All right. Okay. So just catch up with who we got in the chat. We have got Dwayne Plastic Crack Gaming was here like almost an hour ago. Rosie's checked in. Lazy Pirate Painting. Good evening, Sailor. Nick from Team Clueless Games. Good evening. Tony Halton. Friends of General Haig says ahoy and evening all. If you were at Salute, I feel awful. I didn't come over and find you because I think we got photos of your table and I was just busy sorting out interviews and stuff. I regret not trying to catch up with you there. Thomas Chase, Luke Stewart is here. So was WLG represented at Salute last weekend? WLG? I don't know what WLG is. Anybody know? Help me out here. Rich M, John Clark, Walkabout Games, and Charles Latora. Afternoon from SoCal. It's one of the big American shows. All right, guys. That's that. Hobby-wise, tonight I am painting the Flames of War Italy stew. So that's the Stug with the howitzer. I'm going to put some base coats on that, a bit more middle stone. What about you, Willie Mike? Any hobbying?
Jumbo Shermans for the Bulge list to go beating that training battalion.
Oh, you still, yeah. Mike in the last Flames of War game that we played was beat pretty hard, so he's trying a new list next time, so he can face the big tigers.
I'm pottering about doing stuff, mainly doing dungeons and lasers, gizmos. I was going to base up these 12 archers that I finished for some War of the Roses, but that's a nifty job, so I'll do that later.
For maybe never mind the bell.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I've got enough for 2 battles now, is it? So 24
really?
bones, 4 bill, spread over 2 separate units. Luke, do you have any hobby on your desk? I have a sneaky suspicion you're going to be doing lots of talking.
Yeah, I don't have any hobby on the desk, but I do have a whole bunch of stuff like freebies I'm giving out at the convention that I'm going to this weekend. So I'm trying to organize them into little packs, giveaway packs.
Yeah,
so awesome. Good opportunity.
Well, whilst we're here, and before we get right into the meat and tatties of it, Mr. Luke, can you tell the people at home a bit about yourself and why you're on tonight?
Yeah, well, my name is Luke Payne, obviously. I've just recently, so January this year, successfully launched a Kickstarter campaign for Fjord, Serpents, Vikings at War. So this is a game I've had in development. I don't know, it's been in my notebooks for 10 years, I guess. But I managed to pull it out during the pandemic years. I'm also a living historian, avid wargamer, competition player for quite a few games, and just casual fun player as well for a lot of things. Been wargaming now for at least 37 years, I would say. Started with
Did
D&D.
it start with HeroQuest?
No. HeroQuest is after that. I think D&D basics, okay. The red box, and then also D&D version 1, and then
the pros started with the D&D red box. Yeah.
It was fantastic in the 80s, and then sort of moved on to wargaming after that, and then just running and role playing. But I haven't been role playing for about 20 years, but I did do it very avidly as a younger person. But I play hundreds of games. Like I just mental on how many games I've got in one of these guys that paints every army and paints everything and makes sure I've got 10 armies for every game. But yeah, so it's a bit of an addiction, I guess. But yeah, Fjord Serpents is really born out of my love for historical reenactment and living history, but also just wargaming in general. And during those pandemic years, I was like, well, I can't do anything either, so except for Tabletop Simulator. So I just went, okay, well, let's take this idea and run with it and see how I go. Obviously, I'm a bit wiser than I was when I was younger. I've run back in the early 2000s and then late 90s. I did do a series of comics and also a miniature war game as well, which had its own metal miniature range at the time. Which had a limited print run. I did sell some in UK, you guys are, and England and Australia as well. But yeah, found back then with limited resources, dial-up internet, didn't have the stuff we have these days. It was very hard as a young guy to sort of keep. Didn't have experience, I guess. Like, yeah, the funny thing is people would send me, like I was working with artists and we'd have to like send physical mail to each other, and then they'd send me all these plates of artwork, and then I'd have to, the original Photoshop program, I can't remember whatever that was called, the original one, and then had to like individually go through little pixels and take out blemishes, and man, it was insane trying to do that back in the day.
Blimey.
Yeah, but technology has evolved. I've evolved. I've got so yeah.
Has indeed. Do you have an online presence? Do you do any YouTube or any sort of?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do have a.
Yeah, where can we find you? Where can we find you on there?
Yeah, I did have a gaming channel for quite some time. I still do, called War HQ. That one, I developed it originally because I was playing Kill Team competitively for a long time. Like not this current edition, but the one before that they first released.
All right, we quite like Kill Team.
Yeah, I was sort of got fairly competitive with that, and it was more of a strategy sort of channel and what I'm doing. But then I also really like my small scale stuff. So I like my old games like Epic Armageddon and original Space Raiders and stuff like that. So that's what I play mainly. I really love that. So and then War Master, all the old GW stuff as well, like in the small scale. And so the channel sort of expanded to do mainly Epic Armageddon, War Master, and then 3D printing, which is sort of my other sort of, I love 3D printing. So sort of tips and tricks on that as well. So, but that's right.
What if you
busy
play
for
old
that kind of stuff at
GW?
the moment. Running a business and doing about the job of 10 people. So it's I'm sort of more focusing on that at the moment and working, etc. So yeah,
cool.
All right,
Kaiser, right, do your thing.
Yeah, well, so you've given us a great deal more of your pedigree than we normally get. Glad to see that you're a D&D red boxer, not a Hero Quest. That your roots go back further.
yeah.
But look,
50-50.
the reason you're here, I seen an advert somewhere, and there was these beautiful little Viking longships with little blocks of huskarls and what have you, and I thought this looks interesting. So I hit you up on I can't remember, was it Facebook somewhere? I found you.
Yeah,
Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook.
So why don't you tell us about this game that you've been doing? 20 years in the making, he says. So this thing's going to be amazing, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. Amazing. The best thing ever.
Refined.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. So the basic concept that I had, like when I originally looked at my notebooks and I looked at a lot of games and systems, and I was thinking to myself, like, how can I make this kind of, we were talking before this, Kaiser, and you were like, sometimes naval war games can be a little bit bland. And I had this idea.
Usually, unfortunately.
Yeah. I hadn't seen a lot of this particular thing, like a Viking naval game. Like I hadn't seen it. Like I'd seen games that had sort of included a Viking ship. Maybe you're playing War Master and you've got a 10mm ship somewhere, or I've seen a lot of that kind of stuff, but nothing specifically along this line. So that was the original idea. And then I was like, well, if I do this, I want to do it right, because it's a different kind of Viking combat, of naval combat, I should say. So it's not your standard, bring in our age of sail and blow the snot out of each other and eventually board and all that kind of stuff. It's not that kind of game. They didn't have that kind of technology. But a little, not a little known, but a less known fact of history is that Vikings themselves, or Vikings at war, like say the Norwegians and the Danes, did a lot of their combat on the fjords against each other and like in open sea sort of stuff. So they actually, did a lot of naval warfare against each other, and it's not so known unless you're more into, it's not the, I suppose, you don't see a lot of that, like in just general pop culture, I guess. So it was one of those sort of niche ideas you get, at some crazy hour of the morning, and then you run with, I guess. So, but this time,
I guess in filming, it's quite dangerous. to film people
Yes,
standing up in an open boat at sea trying to choreograph a fight.
And I got to say, most of our sort of, like with living history, most of our naval kind of engagements, it's very hard to get a lot of Viking ships, especially in Australia, but there are a couple. But even doing it on land and replicating that is quite difficult as well. You soon see the sort of limitations, I guess, that sort of come with that. So I guess with this game, what I wanted to do was really just pull in my own knowledge of history, which I've been sort of really into for decades now, and run my own sort of organizations and that kind of stuff, and bring it to my other love, which is wargaming. So decided what I want to do was do it right. So the actual combat thing had to be something interesting, and the ship movement itself had to be quite interesting. So they were the first kind of things that I tackled with the game. So when you're playing this game, it feels like you're in some sort of heroic saga, because it's sort of the 10 mil scale gives you that real. You see all these big dragon ships coming out. You've got lots of troops bristling all over the deck, and all that kind of. I wanted that kind of look about it originally. So like the aesthetic had to be right. So I wanted to get sort of like a 1-for-1 representation of how many troops might be on these kind of Viking vessels, and there's. The size of Viking vessels is sort of under debate. Like we found a lot of the smaller ones. So like the sort of the Carvey kind of era, like sort of style stuff. So that's like the Osberg Finder, Gotstack, like those beautiful ships you see, Oslo and all that. They're all that in that the sort of the smaller range of ships. One of the finds that they found at Skulderlev, one of the ones that were sunk to sort of stop other ships coming through, is a much larger war vessel. And we do have written accounts of much larger war vessels, like Olaf Tryggvason said to have like the biggest vessel ever kind of thing. So we sort of what I've done is with the core starter set, you get 2 each. So you've got like the medium sized vessel, 2 of those, and then 2 of the smaller vessels, and that's enough for 2 people to sort of be able to play the smaller sort of scale game, which is the Hersey level, you'd call it. So like a sort of in that 2 ship range, or you could have 3 smaller ships. And then if you were to buy the starter set, you would have enough then to make like 1 person to play quite a large game with 4 vessels. So that was my kind of idea with the actual product itself, was to have enough so you to pick up and play. And really, there's not really a lot of assembly with the ships and stuff too. There's single printed hulls and stuff like that with different prow designs and stuff. But everything is designed to be modular, and that was another sort of a key aspect of what I wanted to go with this. So the crew are modular, everything interacts, everything can move on the ship. There's designated slots on the hull of the actual ship itself for crew. All of that means something, and each crew can do something. Like you know what I mean. Like every turn, you're doing something with everything. It doesn't feel like this thing's not doing anything, or this thing's too slow. You're
getting quite deep now, Luke, and I know you've got pictures. So why don't you show some pictures of the ships and the models?
Pictures? What are these things?
Because I think
what would you like to see?
Show us the pictures of the ships and the models, and then I think what you're talking about will all kind of fit together a little bit.
Yeah, for sure, mate.
While you dig
so let's
that
have a
out,
look.
I'll just catch up with the
show
chat,
you a little bit of a scale picture, I guess, of where we're looking with models. Now I'll bring this up for you and take that away. So
I'll add that.
Yep. So if you have a look here, what we've got are the 4 vessels that are in the game. Now, 2 of these are sort of extensions, so like don't come within the box set. So what we have here is the Carvey ship, which is this one that I've got my cursor around. So the Carvey vessel is a smaller vessel. It's got 4 crew slots. We have this is the Snekjar over here. So we're getting into a lot like a true warship, or a true longship, I guess you'd say, with this one. You can see by the sort of the arc of the prow and all that sort of stuff. It has 6 crew slots. And then we have the Drakkar, which is over here, which is the largest vessel. Now, this is massive for a 10mm scale game. And this is like, the idea was I didn't want to go and just have like, a larger scale and be able to produce just this smallest vessel. What I wanted to do was have a scale where I could produce up to the largest vessel, so that was you could have everything basically that they had. And this Drakkar, this is like replicating something like King Olaf Tryggvason or someone would have used. It's a flagship. You know what I mean? And this is mainly based on, we never found one this big. Okay, like historically nothing's been found this big. So the Skulderlev find is sort of around this size, and the sort of the Osberg and the Gotstack ships are sort of that have been found in history around this size, around this Carvey size. And what we have over here, which is a really cool addition too, is the NAR trading vessel. So right over on this right side of me is the NAR trading vessel. And what I wanted to do with that one is keep it very interesting. So we've got our 3 different size long ships. They all have their own little quirks and abilities. And the NAR is actually very interesting because instead of just having it as like a trading vessel and sort of some sort of, I could have gone the route of it's just a campaign sort of thing that you can use and do as objectives. I didn't want to do that. What I wanted to do is make it so people would want to include it in their fleets. And it's more of a utility piece. So when you choose a NAR vessel, you've got four segments of cargo. So you can either take thralls, which are slaves. You can take civilians. You can take civilians. Sorry, mate.
I'm saying no. I'm just checking off. I'm hoping one of the options is mead. Carry on.
yeah, you see those barrels on there? Yeah. So you've got barrels, which would be full of meat or whatever. They preserved a lot of things, fish, etc. And then you've got furs. So each of these has an in-game sort of thing that it does, which is cool. See, here's a top-down of those as well, just so you can see the scale a little bit better. Now, obviously, the Viking longships are a lot sleeker and longer. And
it's the middle 2 that you get in the starter set, is it?
Yeah, these 2. And you can see here, if you have a look at the ships, as I said, they're modular, and I've actually designed them for modelers as well. So say you didn't want to play this game or you just wanted to use them as a display piece or do something else with them, I have deck fillers, which fill in those crew slots. So the deck fillers come with the actual ships themselves, which is just a little feature that I put in there. And also the shield racks you can see here along the side, they're optional as well. You can either have them on the ship, you don't have to have them on the ship. The sails themselves, each ship, probably I've got a better picture here. I'll just have to go back and just excuse the screen for a second. I'll go back and we'll have a look here. This will give you a good idea of what a kit looks like for something like this. So I'll take that one down, put that up. And what we have here is if you were to buy like a kit, so this is the Carvey, so this is the smallest vessel, and this will give you a much better idea of what I'm looking at and what I'm talking about. So this is what you'd sort of get with any of the ship kits. So you can see here, we've got this slotted design here for the prow, and the Carvey comes with 4 different prow options. It has all of the deck fillers. So for here, so this little round slot is for leaders and heroes. So like your Jarl can go there, or you can put some sort of hero character in there, like a berserk champion or something, or a Skald, all the different things within game. And then you have your crew slots. Now we have like full sail up here, and we also have like a furled sail. Now normally with a furled sail, historically they'd go lengthways across the ship like this. But obviously with the crew being where they are, I couldn't do that. I couldn't put it across the ship because it'd be a bit intrusive to the gameplay. So they're just sort of furled and up a bit. And now, you also have shield racks here.
I can't help but notice, I'm nitpicking maybe because it's presumably it's the size of it. There's no oars.
No, no.
That just wasn't practical. They'd be too thin.
Yeah. I did go that way originally, and I tried to make a base. I made a base that went under the ship, and then it had oars that went down. But then it just didn't seem to work with the game principle, like just the whole feel of the game. Because you've got guys standing and then oars, it kind of looked a bit weird. So I just decided not to use them. Yeah. Just because.
And it's a design choice, right? You know.
Yeah.
I can see they're not there, but I can't see what the alternative was. But you've tried it and you didn't like it.
You could do that, like from a modeling perspective, because if you put the shield racks on, obviously the oars go between. There are little bits on the side where the oars would have been, and then if you put in the hull, then you could model your own seated Vikings if you wanted to go that way. You know what I mean? I did design it with not just my game in mind too. Like if people wanted to pick up kits, then they'd have that option as well. Sort of see.
Nice.
Different sort of
are they
how that
3D
goes
printed
together.
files, or are they like actual product that's going to be available?
These are my prototypes, which are 3D printed, and the actual products will be 3D printed commercially as well. The actual ships and hulls and models. And there's the other sail too. You can see that furled sail design on that one.
Nice.
Yeah, so just that's what I was talking about with that modular kind of thing, and very customizable. So you could have a fleet, and maybe you want all sort of serpent heads. So like, you know, some of the other size ships have different heads as well. So you could sort of theme your fleet in different ways. And obviously with the shield racks, you've got that ability to really customize. What I find between the sails, the shield racks, the prow heads, you've got a lot of customization with how you can theme your models. So you might want to have your warband all based around a certain shield design or a certain colors. You know, I mean, you could go like red and white, and that might be your thing. You know, you might have a striped sail, and then you might go, well, I want red and white shields, and you could really make your warband very, you know, how you want it, I guess, is probably the best way to say it.
Now, okay, so while we're here, and you did say you do the living history stuff, I do need to get onto catch up with the chat again in a minute. But as we're talking about living history and history, what's the deal with Viking shield designs? Are they like Saxons? Are they personal? Are they clan based? Do we know?
Not really. There's not really much information about that. We've got some pictures on stones that you can see, like that sort of spiral pattern where they have that sort of four-way spiral pattern. There, I think it was the Gottstak, I'm pretty sure, or the Osberg was found with shields which had paint remnants on it, and they were all painted one color. But right. Yeah, it's mainly based on pictures, I guess. So pictures from stones of warriors and stuff like that with inscriptions, but also, yeah, just basically the colors and things that they had at the time. There's a lot of gray areas with Viking research and history.
Yeah. So if you want to paint all yours the same color, it's not wrong. And if you want to paint them all different, we don't know that that's wrong either.
Yeah, and like, you know, those typical designs like half, like you know, with the spirally sort of quarters and stuff like that, they're all fairly commonly accepted as things that were on items from that time. You know what I mean? Like pictures of things from that time. So yeah, I mean, I will be bringing this out. I will be bringing out some like color swaths and stuff like that of things. Like I'll be bringing out a couple of series of, you know, what colors did the Vikings have? What did they use, kind of things. A few more historical kind of articles I'll bring out as I do this as well. If people want to go that route, but I mean, you know, if you wanted to make them My Little Pony Vikings, I guess you could. You know, there's nothing stopping you. It's your game. So
let me just catch up with the chat because it's been about 20 minutes. So Friends General Haig, it wasn't me that took the pictures. It was mostly John and Wooly Mike that took the pictures. I was dealing with interviews. Yeah. Sorry, I missed you. WOG Warlord Game, so that should have been more obvious to me. Are you related to Liam Payne from One Direction? Says Rosie.
One Direction? No.
What about Max Payne?
Max Payne, yes. Yeah, Maxi Payne. That's who I am. I'm good at slow motion shooting.
Okay, Luke Stewart. It's fun, especially when the enemy sink their ship by ramming into you. Is that you?
Luke Stewart? No, that's a guy that's played a few games with me.
Right. Okay, he's done these. Friends of General Hick hoping these are 28mm. So we talked about this before the show, didn't we? And about the problem with doing it in 28mm is that the ships would be the size of they'd be 4 foot long.
Yeah, and the price would be exorbitant.
Yeah.
You know, like for what I was trying to achieve. So basically, you know, I wanted that 1-for-1 representation. I want to be able to use the larger ship to the smaller ship. So on a price point and from a gaming point, it'd be just too much. And then imagine the table size you need with a 4 foot long ship. It'd be you got a concrete slab somewhere you can go play, you know, Fjord Serpents at. You know, like it'd be getting a bit much. But yeah.
To be fair, that's the reason I asked about could it be possible? Well, not could it be possible. Are they STL files? Is that a thing that you've done? Because if it is, then you could sell that onto them, and they could maybe be stupid enough to try and print a 4 foot long ship.
I suppose that's an option. But yeah, at the moment, with the scope of what I'm doing at the moment, being a guy running this company by myself, I don't have a team besides the people that I hire, you know, from all over the world, kind of thing. So I'm keeping my focus narrow with this one to concentrate on this, because I will easily get carried away myself, because I'm like you guys, I'm a gamer, so. The next pretty thing catches my eye, and I'm like, but now I want to do. So I've really had to discipline myself. But yeah, in the future, I'm sure there's going to be lots of options for STL stuff. I am going to release STLs of say like the bases that the crew come on and stuff. So say you wanted to do some alternative figures and put them in, because there's plenty of 10 mil Viking figures. You might want to do some alternative figures and use your crew with those. So I'll release the bases as STLs so people can print those, and will be able to use their own Viking models if they wanted to go that route as well.
Yeah. If you're wondering about in the chat, there's people talking about bendy ships. Johnny B famously took a Warlord resin, a cruiser, and testing how bendy it was, because it was their new resin formula, and just snaps it clean in half.
Nice. Maybe it's just heroically strong. Like if you
it's because you're so strong, John. That's what it is.
Yeah. Definitely
that is what it is. For those of us that have a bath, do 3D printed model boats floats? Do we know?
I'm not actually. I could try it out.
Can I play with my Vikings in the bath?
Yeah. You actually want to try it in the bathtub? You can give it a go, I guess. Yeah. I guess so. I think they probably would. Yeah, I can't see why not.
Right.
It's light enough, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. All right then.
Make too many waves. They've got a very low drought, as most Viking vessels do. Not high sides, like the Age of Sail or something.
4-foot ship sounds like a great show centerpiece. Yeah, I'm sure it would be, but I don't know.
Maybe I should take that to the con. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, the circuit with that, it'd really catch some attention.
Well, we just come back from Salute, and it's always the ones with the land and sea interaction that are the most dramatic to look at. Yeah. They look great, but often they've got the ships are just landing. They're just pulling up, and guys are getting off. Or whatever.
That's another point too with the choice of 10 mil is your actual modeling options are amazing, because you can make like at 10 mil, you can make a fjord wall, you can make a big harbor with village and stuff like that. Like it's not out of your scope. Like trying to do that in 28 mil is a big ask, you know what I mean? Like it's a lot of models, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of resin, whatever you're printing. But in 10 mil, it looks great. Like and it's very easy to do. And it's
a whole monastery complex filled with
like Lindisfarne.
I mean,
we talked about this before, didn't we, Kaiser?
That should be the introductory scenario.
Like
build a monk tally between
how
rival
ships. Can you run down in 10 turns?
Mate. I mean,
come on.
That's why we're playing.
How many relics can you run away with? We're just liberating them. You know what I mean? They had all this stuff, like all this heavy stuff they were carrying around.
They're all false gods anyway. I mean, who cares? Right. So anyway, going back, because you just showed the miniatures and then we went off the screen. So should we go back to that? Because I think that's you just showing the
see what I got here.
I'll put you back
about
up on
miniatures. We may as well look at something a bit more
looking
spicy.
at the actual guys that you're going to put in those ships. Oh, we got painted ones. Look at that.
Let's have a look at let's have a look at some of these.
Who doesn't want this in their life?
So here's you sort of see what I got here. There's a few different photos I'll go through. You can sort of on that one I've got up at the moment. You can sort of see what I'm talking about there. You've got here. You've got like a sort of a hero or a jarl. This is some of the Ulfundar sculpts. So these are like if people know from historical mentions, we don't really know how they were used. We just knew that we were an elite troop with wolf skins. So these are Ulfundar. So these are wolf berserkers. This is like you can see some herdmen here with two-handed axes behind there, and some Lidang spear as well behind here. One thing to note with this game, as far as the models go, as far as crew go, I've taken some historical liberties to make this more strategic. So what I've done is I've grouped model types and weapon types into their own units, and this is more of a strategic decision over like a historical decision, because say we know that Vikings use two-handed axes, we know that they use swords, we know that they use spears and hand axes and stuff like that, but they probably use them in a mixed fashion. But what I've done is I've separated those into their own strategic units. So that is a historical kind of thing which may not have happened, but it's more of a liberty, I'll call it, just to make a better game, I guess. So you will see that as we go through some of these. You sort of see there with this is what I was talking about with terrain. This is just in my little box.
10 mil dwarf army, right?
Yeah. 10 mil dwarf army. Indeed.
Oh, 15 mil dwarf army, sorry.
And so, you can sort of see what I was talking about with fjord walls and stuff here on this picture. This is just in my little photo box. I just took some of these last night for you guys because I've been painting these up for the convention this weekend. And and to be able to do through obviously the rule book needs a lot of painted examples as well. So I have to start getting into that.
But like so many things, right? And this is one of the things that initially attracted me. These things at scale is one of the things that makes them look good. Is that there are lots of men on that deck. There aren't 12 men on that deck. Although in fact there's only 6 bases and a hero. But it just feels like this is a ship packed with guys who are
ready to bounce. Yeah,
yeah. It's like, come on, guys, let's do it.
And you can sort of get from that angle of that one that sort of dragon prow thing. That's what I'm looking for too. I want that. If you were to look down on that scale, like it looks like there's this menacing ship coming at you, with the crazy monster prows and stuff like that too. So visually, this is how I wanted it to look. And when you see 20 of these ships together. It's really insane. Like, it looks great. Hey, like a whole fleet, and you can actually replicate that on not even a very large board. So
I've noticed these have both got furled sails. I mean, have you found in gameplay that it's just more practical because you've got to interact with the bases of men?
Yes, but it actually represents in gameplay too. It has an actual function. So when you go to under oar, then you change your sail to this. So basically, it indicates to your opponent that you're under oar, and it just makes things easier to manage. There's a few little things like that. Like, it's when you activate a crew, it's optional. But if you're, you I won't call us old, but if you're a bit older and a bit senile like me, I forget things. So with the crew, what I've designed, you can, when you activate a crew, I usually turn them around, and that indicates that they're activated. It's very easy to do. Just pick it up, turn it around.
Right. Yeah.
And basically, then you can see, and your opponent, you can't get confused then, which I don't get confused is probably a better way to put it. I'm sure some of our younger gamers wouldn't have a problem. But years of being hit in the head with axes hasn't really helped me. But this is just some ideas here. I've got some other ones that are coming up. This is just sort of fjord pictures from above, different sort of angles. But you get that sort of scope. Anyone, I'm sure a few of you guys, you live a lot closer than I do to Scandinavia.
Well, when I was a little kid,
Mike, you went to Iceland recently, didn't you, mate?
Yeah. I was out there just recently.
Yeah,
looking around the Viking museums and that. So.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen fjords and that. So you've got this sort of picture. You can see the scope. You know what I mean? Like from the top of the fjord, looking down at a vessel, and there's a bit of a waterfall and stuff like that. So it's
I hated the Vikings for a while as a kid because they found a longboat when I was a kid, very close to my hometown in Hull, in the Hasholm longboat. Yep. And what they did with it was in water. It was waterlogged. So they closed down the local swimming pool because they put it in a swimming pool while they slowly replaced the water with resin, so the whole thing didn't fall apart. So for 10 years, I lost the swimming baths. Like, fucking Vikings, piss off.
They're still hassling you all these years later.
My ancestors had to live under the fucking Danelaw, and you're still pissing me off now.
That's right. It's the gift that keeps giving.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the first longboat I saw. So the boats, lovely picture. I mean, I think the game sort of sells itself on the basis of it. But let's talk a little bit about this crew composition in a little bit more detail then, because that's kind of a key component of the game, isn't it?
Yes.
When you play, is Vikings at War? Is that, have I got the name right? Fjord Serpents.
Fjord Serpents. Yeah, Vikings at War is just like a sub name. Basically, I'll probably this is like the first game of many. Hopefully, see how I go. Obviously, but the first game of many. But what I mean by that is, I wanted to replicate Vikings at War by themselves first, and really go to this niche sort of corner of the world where they fought on ships, and that was the first idea I had and wanted to do. And we were talking about this in this game. You can get off the vessel as well. You can load onto a terrain feature, as we're saying, but it's not a full war game on land at the moment, but it will be. So eventually, I've already written the rules for all of this, and the next Kickstarter, I guess, that I do probably end of this year or next year, after I fulfill this one, will be the land version of this, where we can then have multi-theaters of war. So we can have Vikings fighting the Saxons, and you can have boats, and you can also have land battles and things like that. Or you could just play it as a land battle game, which looks amazing, by the way, at this scale with this dense. These models transfer very well over into a land battle. just with the amount of figures that are in.
Alfred the Great will be the strongest piece in the game ever, right?
That's right. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, cool.
Depends on your DNA.
If not, that's fake news, man. Fake news.
Yeah, fake news, man. It didn't happen. Yeah.
Fake news.
We won't tell these guys that before they leave Norway, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
living down in the south in old Essex, we've got Alfred the Great, and Canute was down here, so you know.
Right.
You had them all.
Yeah, so as far as the crew goes, sorry, I was answering your question there.
Yeah, and that kind of pre-game phase where you build your lists.
Sure. Yep, so basically the fleet creation is really a big step of this game in itself. Because what you're doing is you're designing, everything's based around your faction and your leader. So your leader, faction gives you a couple of sort of things that you can do to theme it towards what, like, say, the Danes or what the Norwegians would have done and how they sort of fought their sea battles, I guess. So the Norwegians were known to be a lot more aggressive, and they're actually super feared. Like, there was a lot of kings that didn't even want, they saw the Norwegians in a line with boats, they'd be like, yeah, maybe not. You know what I mean? Because they were pretty crazy at the time, especially in the early to mid era of the Viking Age. And the Danes had amazing vessels. They had a lot more probably structure, I guess you'd call. They had more of a sort of an organization to them. So these are reflected in the actual rules for the factions. Now, the leader is the interesting thing. It sort of dictates everything else that you do, because you have to choose a path, and your path really comes through what it is I've sort of taken archetypes of historical kind of figures, and this is how you base your leader, but it also gives you your restrictions on the sort of upgrades that you can have and troops you could choose, I guess, and any special rules. Like, you can get negative rules too. So I was talking about this before with you guys, but you could be something like an upstart sort of Jarl if you wanted to, which means that, you know, you've sort of come to your own power with your own skill and talent. So you've got a lot of natural abilities with this Jarl, but maybe you don't have the resources of another Jarl, which might have a hereditary claim and has been sort of granted that sort of power and esteem. So they might have more upgrades that they can give their fleets and stuff like that, as opposed to physical abilities. But then you can go to like sort of negative ones too. Like, you can go to sort of like a like someone who's excessive, like an excessive Jarl, which could have sort of, they get a trait where they could be drunkenly or cowardly. So you can get negative traits. So you can sort of have this drunk Jarl who doesn't like fighting, but is going to be under attack, but he's excessive. So like, he's super wealthy, isn't into combat, but he's got plenty of money and plenty of resources to pull into, like, buying the best troops and ships to be able to fight for him. So these things all come into gameplay and sort of dictate how you would design your fleet in general. So this is kind of the really fun part, I guess. Like, pre-game, you can take this as far as you want, and it kind of writes its own story. Like, some of the test games we've had heaps of fun just sort of like designing our Jarls and how crazy and what sort of negative traits and things they do, and that can sort of dictate how, if you're being more of a narrative or a sort of player, this could dictate how you might play on the board as well. You know what I mean? So if you are this excessive crazy person, or you can be some sort of nationalistic sort of tyrant who's just all in it for the glory of Denmark or whatever, you can go these kind of ways. And you can even be like a renegade, which is kind of interesting, which is something you see through the Viking Age, where it's someone that's been ostracized from their own community, and now they've gone and sought refuge with a cousin in a different nation. You know what I mean? So now they might have access to some of those factions' abilities and things like that. Yeah. And that's kind of, with your Jarl, then that sort of dictates what sort of skill sets you can use, or what sort of limitations on skill sets you can have. So that, how I've sort of broken it up, you've got sort of traits. So traits are like a personal thing. So like they're like a combat trait or something that your leader does themselves. And that's just permanent. Then you go to sort of like an upgrade, which is a pre-game change. So you can like upgrade ships. You can get certain reinforcements of troops. You can do those kind of things. And then you've got abilities, which are like a once per turn thing that you can do. And these are all faction related. And then lastly, you've got like an effect. And these are things you can choose to use. An effect is a once per game boon, basically, which is quite large. Sorry,
you've just described a lot of things, Luke, and so just in terms of pre-game, I'm getting a bit nervous about how time consuming this is.
No.
So is this choose one of these, and one of these?
Yeah. And
is it randomizable if you just want to pick up game?
Yes. Yeah, you can totally randomize it. Basically, it's not like a large, it's sort of as large as you want it to be, I guess. Like, you could look into all of these and you could think, okay, I want this. But what you will find if you're more competitive is you'll choose things that sort of, you know, go together or might complement each other, or that kind of thing. But as a casual gamer, you could go, well, I like this idea of me being this, you know, being a bit of a drunk, but doing this, and, you know, but having lots of money. Like, that's how I want to play. You know what I mean? Or so it's really covered in like 2 sheets, like front and back of a sheet.
Right,
And it's really
right. I don't have to read like 40 pages of abilities and then pick 2.
No.
You know,
they're like one-line abilities, Kaiser. Yeah, like they're literally just like does this +1 to that. This,
cool.
Yeah,
because I remember Frostgrave, for example. It's like pick 6 spells from this 40-page book. I'm like, I'm out. I don't.
You're out.
I don't care enough.
Yeah,
you know.
So basically, it's as simple as saying I'm going to play at this level game. So you've got Herseer, Jarl, King, which gives you your points, and then it's like, okay, now I've got faction points. I've got, okay, I'm a Jarl. I've got 2 to spend. There's 6 there. You could roll them randomly, or you could just go this one, and then it's literally then choose your path of who you are, and then you've got, if you're a Jarl again, you've got 3 points to spend on any of those things I mentioned before, and it's literally that's it. And then really, it's just creating your fleet. Then is quite easy because it's like, okay, well, I'm going to, you know, a Carvey, each ship, there's only sort of, 4 in the game, so that makes it quite easy too. There's not massive amounts of choices, and 2 within the box set. So it's not like you're not spoilt for choice with the actual ship selection. But each ship then comes with its own complement of leadang troops or bondsmen. So basically, levy. So each ship comes with that. So all you're doing from then is you're just sort of upgrading. Like, you're just saying like, okay, well, I want this ship to have more elite Hearthguard or something, on there with 2-headed axes, say, or I want this ship to have like a berserker and such, and that's all covered within the points excess that you would have from the ships you've chosen, and you're just basically replacing the leadang that are inside the ship. And
the ship's company is in no way separate from the ship, so I can't take like all of the Huskarls from this ship and stick them on the other one to block them all together.
No, you can. But what you can do is you can transfer crew between ships when they're touching.
Right, but that's
and you can actually board and move onto enemy ships as well, which is kind of fun. Right, and you can actually capture enemy ships, which is even more fun, and then sail away into the sunset with a ship.
That's what winning looks like, right?
Yeah, that's
winning hard. Beat you and went home with your ship. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And these things are so expensive historically that would be the goal anyway.
Yeah,
I think you'd find.
Wow. So that's our campaign already covered then, Kaiser. We played the first game. You steal all my ships.
In the second game, you don't turn up.
You could also play it where, if you actually steal their ship, then they actually get to keep it. That'd be fun. Like poker or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. You really want to live dangerously.
The state that you're at, sort of, with you get, because you've got plans for expansion. You've already referenced a couple of them, but you've put together what is a pretty tight starter set. This is like the beginning of the journey. So the kind of interaction with land is going to come later, and presumably then there's no kind of built-in narrative campaign system either at this point.
Yes, there's like a campaign arc, is what you'd call it, as if you're doing narrative play. And how this kind of works, it's sort of similar to a bit of a choose your own adventure kind of thing, where you have a meeting point and they're on arcs. So like I might have 2 story campaigns with the box set in the rulebook, and you could choose one of those and you play through it. And the idea is you might start at a certain point, but you could end in a very different point. So, for example, if one person was the aggressor and come to raid you or something at your village, then what happens then? If you were to repel them, then you might be able to either, take chase and like try and chase them down, and that might give them a slight disadvantage to take out one of their ships or something. Or you might also choose to be like, well, I'll bolster my home defenses. So, and then you'll have a different engagement. So, and then from those, it just sort of branches out until someone's won enough battles, and then it's the final showdown sort of thing. You know what I mean? So it's the campaign arcs kind of go in that kind of direction for narrative play.
But each battle is a fresh battle. It's not like you got wiped out last time. You got to play with the nothing left.
No.
Yeah, those are better campaign systems. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I think so too. I kind of keep it a bit abstract like that. Like you could be maybe you didn't die in that battle. It could have been your son. It could have been anyone that was out fighting. It could have been just your sub general. I kind of keep it abstract, and then the innate abilities that you've chosen are more a fleet-wide ability too, that base your faction and how your leader likes to play. So and then with this,
that sounds good.
as I said, I have really designed the campaign. I'm a fairly competitive player with other game systems, so I've really designed the campaign play, the match play, to be as competitive as you want.
Oh, you're breaking up a bit.
It's because you mentioned competitive play.
Yeah,
we just booed him, just kicked him. Don't want it. Just want campaigns. Stealing stuff.
Oh, hello, Luke. You broke up there. Just say hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Okay, you're back. You're back.
I'm back.
All right.
Yep.
We just phased out.
It's the koalas that run my internet. You know, I've got to go feed them so they run around the wheel.
The drop bears are attacking them, no?
Oh, it's a real thing. Yeah.
Right. All right. So, look, just talk a little bit about gameplay for the kind of last few minutes of the show. First, there's about kind of broadly speaking, the ship movement, the ship interaction. You mentioned it's a game of naval combat. We can all visualize Vikings piling onto another Viking ship, pushing each other into the sea and chopping heads off. And hopefully that's a big part of it. But,
yeah, it certainly is.
But Vikings are notoriously great mariners, and there's more interplay between the terrain on the board and sea hazards is an important part of gameplay, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, obstacles. I call them obstacles within the game, because everything you hit with a Viking ship is probably not a good idea. They are, they are fairly flimsy, to be as they are. But gameplay itself, how it sort of revolves around ship and crew activation. So at the beginning, you got wind direction, all these things, and we've got basic and advanced rules, but I won't go into that. So I'll just give a general overview. But you determined the wind, you determined initiative. So we've got your normal sort of initiative thing. But the beauty of this is you never have a feel bad moment, because if you get to choose either to have ship initiative or crew initiative, because they're different phases within the turn. So if you take ship initiative, then you get to activate the first ship, and then it alternates through your opponent until the last ship. And then you have 2 ship phases in the one turn, which is very interesting as well. I put this in there because what I wanted to replicate was I wanted to speed up the gameplay, so you're never in these situations where these guys are fighting over here, but these ships are going to take 10 turns to get to this enemy. I didn't want that within the game. I wanted it to be fairly rapid. And I also assumed that when you're fighting on a Viking longship, and from our own experimentations as living historians, it's not a case, as you were saying before, it's not a case of rushing the side and sinking your ship and not capsizing. It's more a case of a very focused combat at one point of the vessel, while everyone protects you and covers you with missiles and stuff like that, and protects you. So it's more a case of that when you come into it. So with the ship phase, as I said, you've got the 2 movement phases, and that gives you a lot of tactical acumen there. You're able to, I was saying before, like it's sort of a bit like, if you could imagine like Star Wars X-Wing or something. It's not on that same sort of crazy spaceship scale, but like on a more of a naval scale. You're taking those multiple actions to try and outmaneuver each other. But the wind direction affects drift, and it also affects where you are on the board is so important. And another important thing is actually understanding how movement works with naval warfare, because you've got these big long ships and you've got these rocks over here. You want to do a sharp turn near those rocks, the back end of your ship suddenly just smashes into the side of a rock. So you've really got to think about where you position things. And there's been a few situations in a lot of the test gaming where we've managed to pin people in against things and then smash them repeatedly against the rocks with the wind direction going with us. So once you've sort of engaged and hit them into the rock, they're naturally drifting back into that rock until you sink their ship, or they can escape and try and get away. So
that sounds like John all over.
Yeah, John, you're
he's going to be like up against the rock, just slamming into it.
Yeah,
like Homer Simpson on a staircase.
For sure, man. So that it's very maneuver based. So it's sort of, I was describing it before as 2 games in one, and it really is, because you really got this naval aspect of outmaneuvering each other, getting into good positions, not ramming, but sort of colliding into people, getting one up on people and grappling them so you can get into a better fighting position. But then the crew phase comes along after that, and then it goes to that deck level. Boom, like we come down into the deck level, and then everyone can do something. So the person then with the crew initiative could then choose which of their models, and every single crew can do something every turn. They all get 1 activation, basically. And this is why it keeps fast paced, because it's like move, 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 move. down to deck level, fight, or like, you know, crew, and then that lot's done. Then you go on to the next lot if there's more, and that's it. So it moves very, very rapid pace. You're not sitting there for hours saying, oh, this crew's going to do this, because they've only do one thing, and there's only like so many actions. So, and those actions are either like assault, and each ship can only do one assault per phase, as we were talking before, because it's not the kind of war. You can't just bum rush the side of your Viking.
Everybody will fall.
Everyone falls over and everything goes to shit or sinks.
Yeah.
And you can't have multiple people do that unless you have one of the larger vessels. So the Drakkar, I won't get into it, but can do that. It's a special ability, can fight multiple opponents. But most ships can only do one assault. But then you also have missile troops. Missile troops can either assist each other or they can shoot. You've got different types. You've got like the Javelineers, which are more suited towards the shorter range, obviously, but they can penetrate armor a little bit better. And then you've got like archers, which can do a bit of a longer range volley, fire for effect sort of stuff when you're not engaged with people. So you can do these like drive-by shootings if you want. Like if you're sort of more specialized in the larger ships, you can sort of come by and shoot the hell out of them like as you go by, and then before they get to you.
But to keep it essentially a game about Vikings chopping each other up with axes,
100%.
There's a limit on the amount of missile troops you can take.
100%, yeah. Like so, it's a 1 for 3. So when you choose your ship, you can have leading missile troops. I don't have any elite missile troops at the moment. There will be eventually, but most troops assumed in the Viking Age to have missiles like bows and javelins were either youths or they were like younger guys. You know what I mean? Like or just not the full frontline warriors. Like so, you give it to your other blokes and young fellas to sort of throw missiles and harry people, like the ones which young people are good at. So yeah, like that's sort of how it works. And you can grapple, you can counter grapple, and this all affects your end turn. So you can try and remove the grapples from a ship. Obviously, if you've been grappled in a bad situation, you want to get away, you can try and remove those grapples, forfeit some of your fighting to get away, because in the end phase, you'll actually drift away from each other at a different random sort of ability. And then at the start of the new phase, then you'll be able to move. And if you were to win ship movement, you'd be able to get away, obviously. Or maybe, if you can move fast enough. But it's combat itself is quite sort of brutal, I guess, and because it comes down to everything's just treated the same. Like everything's got just one hit, right? Like you're dead if you fail, kind of thing. But you can take wounds, and wounds are very interesting. So, like, say I was to wound an enemy guy, the second time I hit him, if he takes more than 2 wounds in a turn, he's automatically killed. It's easier to wound, obviously, than kill. But wounds can also be spent by the enemy. So like, so say he attacks me and he's wounded. It's sort of more, because it's on a bit of a larger scale, it more sort of represents that disorganization that troops could have, more so than just being physically wounded. So you've done this attack against them, they're sort of pushed back and some of them are wounded, some of them are a bit disorganized. So you can, if they go to attack you in that state, you can spend their wound to change their dice roll by 1, which can be the difference between dying or being wounded or being not wounded. So, which is quite interesting too. So you can take that state of disorganization and sort of just take it away. And basically, you're healing that from them, but you're saving your own ass at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So just
all
little inbuilt things like that. Yeah.
You've got alternating activations, which is great. You've got ships maneuvering is an important part of the game. I like the sounds of that. You've got Vikings chopping each other with axes. There seems like a lot to like. Do you want to put back up on the screen there the pretty pictures of the boats and the little men? Because we are coming close to the end. Just to remind everybody, because the game could be rubbish. I still want these boats, mate. I want them in my life.
So when will people be getting their boxes of this?
At the moment, I'm aiming for looking for November, December. But that's my goal. I'm on target at the moment. I am on target.
Stay on target.
Yeah, it's a big job for one bloke, but I'm doing my best. And it's looking like it should be November, December. I'm looking. And now, as far as shipping goes, and that it will be from the manufacturer, the initial shipping thing, which will make it a lot cheaper for everyone. But I will have distribution centers, which will be in the main places. I'll have one in the UK. I'll have one in America, Australia. I'll be the Australian distributor. And then, we'll get into that.
Right. Now, just thinking about it, is this the contents of the starter set painted, the miniatures?
Yes.
This is, because it's the two...
Well, these are the 2 Snekyar, so the medium ships, and the 2 Carvey,
yeah.
With a full complement of crew.
You get this, you get a playmat, you get the tokens, rules, all that.
Do you want me to show you the box set components?
Yeah, if you've got one.
Probably the best way to go, yeah.
Know. And if you know the price in Great British pounds, people will probably like to know that too.
It's going to be a hard one for me offhand. Because yeah, okay. So that's up on the screen at the moment. This is just a mock-up, obviously. So what you've got there, box set, fairly substantial rulebook too. Like not just some little leaflet or something. This is full color, full artwork designed. We have. It's, as I said, it's been designed to pick up and play. So you have here's a weather spinner over here. You've got your movement rulers, all your tokens. That's just one of each token, but there's obviously 100 or more tokens in the game, just for ease of recording things. You've got terrain features here. So we have like large scary rocks. You have then you have your passable terrain, I guess you'd call it. So you've got like tree slides. You've got smaller scary rocks, so the ships can actually move through these, and then a shipwreck as well, which is part of the game as a bit of a scenario, but also can be used as terrain, and a waterfall over here.
Right.
And obviously you've got dice, so you can just pick the game up and play it. You've got your 4 ships and heaps of crew. And by heaps of crew, you've got all of the lead and complement. Plus you've got enough upgrades that you could upgrade all the ships with elite crew multiply. You know what I mean? Like they could all have the same elite crew if you wanted. So there's enough crew in there. Something like 300 and something miniatures inside the actual box set.
Okay, so
miniatures.
Questions from the viewers. What's the price point and the playtime? And you don't know the answer. Yeah, so you can tell them what it is in Australian shekels or whatever, can't you?
Well, the problem is with Australian, it's going to be like nearly double the price of what you pay in the UK, because it's unfortunate thing. We pay like over here, you know, a box set you might buy for 90, you know, 80 pounds over there, we'd probably pay 200 Australian dollars for over here. So,
right.
But at the moment, the price point of the Kickstarter, probably the best way to put it is 130 about 130 Australian, which in US dollars is about 90, something like that. Yeah, it's about
so
90
UK maybe 70, 75 quid.
Something
Euros
something
similar.
like that, yeah. But that's the
69.39 is the current.
Oh, he's got the currency converter up.
Google it and everything. Yeah, didn't think about that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thomas Chase
said asked about game objectives. I assume so. Some of the scenarios do involve going to places and collecting things. You mentioned the shipwreck. Is that right?
This is a pretty big topic, because if you're going to play competitive, you have like a strategic focus. Like you'll have a mission objective, and your mission objective might be to, you know, secure this part of the board as a lane, so a larger force can invade or something. Could be something like that. But then you'll also have like a strategic focus that you're trying to achieve. So what that represents is like what your Jarl has issued the orders at the beginning. He might be like, I want to kill the enemy leader, and that could be your strategic focus. So between those, you'll get victory points, which will give you the game victory, obviously, between the mission objectives and then
there's a lot of scenarios, and they have varying objectives.
And obviously different campaign play versus story, you know, your match play as well.
Magic. This is one I would have thought this should be a stretch goal, man. Viking funerals for heroes killed in battle. Is there a mini of a dude on fire on a boat? And if not, why not?
If not, why not? Yeah, I'm just slack. I'm going to do it. Or maybe it can be like a free STL. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's iconic though, isn't it? You know, that's how we all want to go.
Exactly.
Maybe if you lose your hero, you have to set fire to the ship.
You could. They're pretty expensive things, but you could. I was saying before, you could play this like a roulette style, and you could actually, if you capture someone's ship, then you could actually just keep it. It'd be fun in a competitive game.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to be brutal and I'm going to be frank. A concern that a lot of people have around Kickstarter projects, the lead times are often massive. The game is often dead on release. People get a mountain of stuff. It arrives, you know, in the box the size of a washing machine, and then they never hear from the game again. That's not the case here, right?
It's not the aim to be, no.
No, but your expansions are not coming out of stretch goals. They're all later.
No. The first expansion for the game is actually a mercenary expansion, and it'll be something that I fund myself. Anything major, because I am a starting company, I'm not like Games Workshop or something, or any of these big companies. The second one will be another Kickstarter, but by the time that Kickstarter comes out, this one would have been fulfilled. So it's not like, you know, it's not like you're going to be, you know, 2 things in arrears kind of thing. It won't be kind of like that.
That's good.
Cool. So, Alfred the Great, that's coming in the first expansion, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
And then, which expansion will be the Ragnarok expansion?
The Ragnarok expansion. We might have an alternative, sort of.
I want Frost Trolls.
Mythology expansion in one stage, I guess.
Oh, you've got it.
Somebody did mention
guys.
that, sea beast and all that.
Someone mentioned sea monsters and magic.
Well, the ships themselves are the sea beast. They're the kings in the Viking sagas. The Fjord Serpents in the name.
I understand. You said you described yourself as an amateur historian and do living history. I understand the desire for authenticity. What I would say of my readings of the Icelandic sagas is that sea monsters and Ragnarok were as real to them as Dawn and fodder. They absolutely believed that they were out there.
Fantastic, for sure.
Even if they weren't.
Even if they weren't. Just as I said to you before, Chrysler, you just make sure you don't tell them this before you get to the battle. You just tell them before that. It's like, let's go to Ragnarok's happening and all this. And they'll be like, let's fight harder. So we don't need morale in the game because of that, right?
No, right. That's right. They're going to go to Valhalla and then they get eaten by a frost troll again. What was that, Mike?
I said, didn't the Vikings believe that fog was the breath of the sea dragon?
Well,
there you go.
Maybe.
There you go. We'll Google it and find out. Where did we get to with our hobbying? I got up to. Let's just take a picture away. I actually have the base coat down, so I'll get a wash on it probably in the next live show. But the base coat is done. Wooly Mike.
2 Jumbo Shermans with the 76s. And I like the fact that I've even made the 75s with turret pins and everything, spare on the sprue. So you get the 76s and the 75 turrets.
Lovely.
Comprehensive kit.
Coming to a table near you next month.
Put together a little barbarian girl from this D&D NPC pack. She's very, Viking-esque, so... And there you go. That was it. And Luke talked to us about the battle boaties. That's what he did. And oh my, does it look schmexy. So schmexy. Mwah. Chef's kiss.
Be on my Christmas list.
All right, Luke, remind the people where they can find your Kickstarter if they want to get involved in this.
Yeah. Well, what I've got on the screen at the moment, Kaiser, is I've just put up a thing where you can... What I've done is Indiegogo. I haven't pushed Indiegogo yet, but it has the original pledges that were on the Kickstarter. So if anyone was interested, they could go to this Indiegogo link and access those original pledges. Because what I've decided to do is extend it until I start manufacturing. I will have excess stock, obviously. So what I'm trying to do here is just make as many sales as I can, get as many people involved as I can beforehand. Now, if you weren't so much interested in the full pledges, and they are at a reduced price, obviously, if you were to buy them that way, you can do pre-orders through BackerKit, and the link is there for the BackerKit. And you could order individual things then. So if you just wanted, say, one ship or something like that, they come in kits as well. So you could go that way if you were looking. And all of this stuff will be with the original fulfillment of the Kickstarter in the same time frame. Like, it's not like extended or anything. If you went to Indiegogo, you get it at the same time. I'm not dealing with millions of copies of things. I'm a pretty grassroots kind of guy at the moment. So
to clarify, is the Kickstarter now closed then? So if people want to get into this, do they have to go to Indiegogo?
Yes, the Kickstarter's closed. The pre-orders are still technically through it's through BackerKit, but BackerKit's a pledge manager working with Kickstarter. So what happened is I just recently released, I opened back up to sales again for my Kickstarter backers, and they've purchased a whole bunch more stuff now that they know more about the game, like after the Kickstarter ended. So you can still do that through the BackerKit link there, if so inclined.
Right, magic.
Yeah.
Okay, that looks good. The last question I forgot, Dwayne said about playtime. So the game is played at three kind of different sizes, which is like your points level. But if someone, once you've played the base, you understand the game, how long does it take to play the size of game you get in that starter kit, would you say?
Yep. So I'd say if you're going to use it as a 2-player game with a starter set, you'd be looking at about 45-minute playtime, I think.
Nice.
And then if you were to use the expanded set and someone else had a box set or some miniatures, and you're going to go up to Jarl or King, you're probably more looking at an hour to an hour and 45 max, I'd say.
All right. Luke, it's been a real pleasure having you here. Hopefully we've addressed all the questions. Thank you very much. The last question is, you're going to be sending us a box?
Of course.
Oh, look at that. They always say, they always do it though. No, I'm really looking forward to this. It looks great. It looks like a good thing for the Christmas list. For people that are not in a position to buy it now, you will be distributing it through EU, UK, Australia, US.
Yeah, obviously my main disadvantage of being at the arse end of the world, as we call it down here, is that obviously postage from here to other parts of the main parts of the world where people would play is quite exorbitant. So I'm looking at the distribution centers, and they will all be brought out as soon as this is released. They'll be sent to the distribution centers around the UK and Europe and all that sort of stuff too. So you will be able to purchase all that information. I've been updating people mainly through Kickstarter. I put updates up there, or my Facebook site. If you look up Fjord Serpents, I do a lot of updates through their modeling and gaming stuff too. So.
And if people want to know more, there's loads of videos on there, like how this game plays out. It's all there. We're never going to have time to show you all tonight. But
it's obviously things have been changing with testing, and I will be updating that as we go along as well. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, by the way, guys, for the interview. I really appreciate it.
All right. Be seeing you.